Now, amongst the government's pledges announced in the King's speech yesterday were a number of reforms to the justice system.
A bill will be brought forward to ensure tougher sentences for the most serious offenders and increase the confidence of victims. My ministers will introduce legislation to empower police forces and the criminal justice system to prevent new or complex crimes, such as digital-enabled crime and child sexual abuse, including grooming.
Well, as well as tougher sentences for serious offenders, judges will also be given powers to force convicted criminals into the dock to hear their sentencing. Joining us now to discuss this, former Old Bailey judge Wendy Joseph KC and Farah Naz, the aunt of Zara Alena, an aspiring lawyer who was murdered last year. Farah, you've long been campaigning on this issue for change. What was your reaction to the King's speech?
Well, of course, we applaud that change. It has been a long time coming. There have been people before us who've been campaigning for this change for many years. So it's a welcome step. We hope that it's implemented in a sustainable manner and that we don't return to, it was a comment that I heard earlier, for sentencing to wait a year before somebody agrees to come into the dock. That isn't what we should be going towards, because that also hurts victims. So it needs to be done in a thought-out way. It's an important step, but it may not need to apply to everybody, and maybe sometimes cameras can be used, incentives can be used, but of course, you know, prisoners, felons should not be forced physically into a courtroom.
Farah, so Zara's killer refused to attend his sentencing. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that had on yourself and for Zara's family? Did you feel like you were denied a sense of justice?
For sure. You know, the sense of the rebalance of justice is that you see the person being confronted with what they did. And we wanted that moment, even if he had a smile on his face, we wanted to see the judge hold him to account. And that I think is an important natural, it's a natural human reaction, and it puts things into balance. It doesn't take away any pain, it doesn't stop any grief, but it puts things into balance, and that's what we hope for from the justice system.
And I think most people would hear that and on the face of it say absolutely justice seemed to be done. That final moment, I've sat in courtrooms reporting on stories, that moment where the judge and the convicted offender is sentenced. It's pivotal, it is dramatic, it is meant to be, it is full of emotion, but it's the point where you sense this is what our justice system is about, a person facing the consequences. However, there is a kind of reality here. When I speak to a lot of lawyers about this, and we'll speak to a former judge in just a moment, there is a sense that whatever we think, whatever we want to be done, in practical terms, it's pretty much impossible to enforce this.
Well, you know, there's a reason why this law was introduced, that the felon didn't need to attend, and that was because, well, from a former judge would know better, but my understanding is it was because then sentencing processes were delayed, and that hurt victims. So, of course, it's really important that we don't revert to that. But at the same time, if this ruling that we had where they didn't need to attend the courtroom then actually started being utilised, and it was it looks like, it appears, obviously I can't say for sure, that it's the last bit of power that felon exercises. So it was a deliberate move. And that's what I think is really important to keep into balance as well. The felon shouldn't have that much power. to then hurt a family even more. Oh, well, I can't be bothered to turn up. And, you know, in our case, that's what it very much appeared to be.
Wendy, just to bring you in on this, you're a former Old Bailey judge. A lot of our viewers feel very passionately about this, that criminals should be forced to face sentencing. But in practical terms, is it really doable?
Well, the short answer is no, not without disrupting the whole session with a very few criminals. I don't think that the proposal in the King's speech, now of course none of us really know what the detail's going to be, but I don't think the idea is that there will be a mandatory appearance. I think the idea is that the judge will be given the power, the discretion to make appearance mandatory. So I think the judge will, as I understand what Alex Chalk was saying earlier on, the idea would still be that a judge could say, you know what, I'm not going to give this defendant the power to hurt people more by disrupting and turning the hearing into a circus. But I so understand what Farah is saying. She and I have been in situations where we've been exchanging views and on this before, and I know how carefully and responsibly she's been thinking about it and developing her ideas about it. The reality is that if you've got someone, that perhaps the first thing to say is an awful lot of those people in the dock are not normal. They wouldn't be there having done what they've done if they were normal, rational people, amenable to the things that we expect people in our society to be amenable to. And there are those, I hope they would be very few, who would just take an opportunity perhaps to disrupt the hearing, to protest innocence. And a judge can get someone carried into court, can have them held down. Theoretically, if they closed their eyes and refused to look into the face of the people they had so grievously hurt, you could think about forcing their eyes open. If they put their fingers in their ears, you could think about pulling their fingers out. But I've only got to say those things for us all to see how utterly impractical it would be.
Just talk us through then, we have to be brief on this. I know you've written a book on this called Unlawful Killings, is that right?
Yes.
Which is out there now. It goes into the detail of the perspective of the judge and the process. Because what is interesting, hearing from Farah there and others, one can totally understand the views of the family. It's a very seductive situation. How does it feel as the judge when you're up there and somebody refuses to appear? Just very briefly, if we can, Wendy, what is your reaction when they say, I'm not coming to see you?
What is in the forefront of the judge's mind is the family who may be standing in the witness box, actually reading out their impact statement and describing how they feel, and for them to have their platform.
OK, listen, Wendy, thank you. Good to see you. Wendy Joseph, KC, and Farah Naz, thanks for coming in to see us. Still to